First question is, could you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got started in the entertainment industry?
Well, that's a story all in itself, because what happened was there were 7 of us young filmmakers. I think I was 19. I was the youngest. I was known as the kid. And the 7 of us decided we wanted to make a film. The only kind of film that we could afford to make was an animal picture because we couldn't afford to pay for actors.
Mm-hmm.
The only time we could afford to shoot it was in the summertime because we had to go out in the woods and find animals to film. So we got done with the film, and that fall we took it to theaters, and the theaters said to us, now mind you, we're young filmmakers, the theaters said, guys, you shot this in 16, we show 35 in the theater, that's point 1. Point 2, this is an animal documentary, we give those for free as serials, so get the heck out of our sight.
Yeah.
The 7 of us regrouped over Christmas and decided to do something that changed all 7 of our lives forever. We rented 7 16-millimeter projectors, and in January, February, March, we took those prints of the film around to meeting halls and Elks Lodges and things like that. And by the time we got done, the end of the first quarter, we had almost $300,000.
Yeah.
And the film had cost us maybe $2-3 grand to make. And so we said, let's do that again. Well, we had more success, and what it was, this was in 1968, and we invented what was called the four-wall business, which through the 70s into early 80, what we did was we started out at meeting halls, but we ended up renting theaters. We went to 35-millimeter prints. This is cutting to the early 70s now. And we rented the theaters and took all the money out and put our own cashier in and paid the rent of the theater in advance and took all the cash out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way we got in the film business. Now, of the 7 of us, 2 of us, Al Pedersen and myself, decided to stay out in the sticks and make film. The other 5 guys went to Hollywood to set the world on fire. 2 of them ended up presidents of networks, and 3 of them ended up presidents of studios. Wow. And Al Pedersen has now been retired for 4 years from my operation, and I continue to make film in the sticks.
Now, I know early on you did a few Grizzly Adams projects. I was just curious, what drew you to that character so much?
Well, in the process of making animal pictures, and I think I made like 32 animal pictures before I did my first actor picture. In the process of doing those films, you learn a lot about animals, and animal trainers talk to you a lot. And I wrote a book in 72 called The Life and Times of Grizzly Adams.
Mm-hmm.
And Patrick Frawley, who owned the Schick Razor Blade Company, Papermate Pen Company, Technicolor, on and on and on, and became my mentor for a number of years. Patrick Frawley called me and he said, "Hey kid, I think we ought to make this Grizzly Adams book into a movie." In 1974, for $126,000, we made The Life and Times of Grizzly Adams. And I think opening weekend it did $36 million, went on to do over $80 million.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I ended up doing Grizzly Adams. So then, must have been in 1976, I get a call on the phone from Paul Klein, who was president of NBC. He said, "Hey, you're a hard guy to track down." I said, "Well, I'm pretty busy. We're shooting a film right now." And he said, "I'd like for you to do a television series for me." And I said, "No, thanks." And it was just this dead silence on the phone because I guess at that time when the president of a studio or network called you and said they wanted a television series, filmmakers jumped through hoops. But we were busy, and we had over $100 million a year business at that time in theatrical. And I said, no. So he said, well, can we at least get together and have a meeting? So I was in Savannah, Georgia, doing a show at that time, and I flew up to New York, which is where Paul was. I met him. We became close friends, and until the day he died, we did, after he left NBC, we did some other shows together and so forth. But anyway, I hit it off with Paul. I liked him, and so I agreed to do Grizzly Adams as a television series.
Mm-hmm.
And then in about 1981, I did a second feature called The Capture of Grizzly Adams with Chuck Connors. And that's pretty much the saga of Grizzly Adams, except I have been for the last 9 months developing a new script. In about 18 months from now, there will be a new Grizzly Adams movie out called Will to Survive, and we'll do a national search for a new, young, good-looking Grizzly Adams to play the part.
Now, that should be interesting. I've noticed that a lot of your films also are based on books or novels, and I was just curious, and you write a lot yourself, if you consider yourself a writer before everything else, or...
Yeah, I've been writing ever since I was in high school, and the biggest drawback, I'd say, to my career was that my mother, my teachers, everyone around me discouraged me from writing, and it was just a couple of years before my mother passed away that she finally acknowledged that I might be able to make a living being a writer.
Yeah.
But I am a writer. I've written 18 books, 108 screenplays, and I don't even know how many television shows.
I wanted to ask about a project you did. I think it was around 81, 82. You were a producer on a movie called The Boogans.
Right.
Which was...
I was one of the writers of the script, and Jim Conway, who was a young editor for me in the 70s, and we brought up and promoted to director. He directed that show, and I was one of the writers and the producer. It was based on a book that I wrote as well. And what it was, I have always had a hobby of going and looking at old mines. I love them. I've got an extensive color photography collection of photos of old mines. And in the process of going to some of these old mining towns, I started being told this story that supposedly happened in the 1800s when Tremors, of course, came many years later, but this was sort of the prequel to Tremors in that it's a similar story. All these miners talked about this one mine that broke into this cavern and released some kinds of monsters from the deep.
Mm-hmm.
And I became intrigued with that story and wrote the book, The Boogans, and then I believe in about 80 or 79, 80, 81 in that area, we made it into a movie. And lo and behold, it became a cult classic. I get lots of letters and phone calls and inquiries every year about the Boogans, of all things. I only have done a few horror pictures in my career. Silent Night, Deadly Night, The Boogans, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, and The Fall of the House of Usher. And the way I ended up doing these, oddly, was in 1974-75, I picked up Von Daniken's book, the book rights to Chariots of the Gods, and I made that into a movie. Mm-hmm. And it was a reasonably successful movie. I think it did around $60 million. And of course, in the 70s, that'd probably be $180 million today. Yeah. But it was a reasonably successful film. And so then I picked up some footage from a rancher up north. We did a short called Bigfoot the Mysterious Monster. Mm-hmm. And we linked it with our main feature at the time, which I think was Wilderness Journey or something like that, and people wrapped around the block to see the short. And so I became very interested sort of in that genre at that point. And I did Hangar 18. I did a number of other sort of fringe shows. And then I ended up doing 4 actual horror movies.
Now, I've heard something about there was a long delay in the video release of the Boogans. You know the story behind that?
Oh, well, here's what happened. It's pretty simple. In 1982, Taft Broadcasting, who owned World Vision, made us an offer to buy our early library. So I own everything after 1982, and I sold everything prior to 1982 to World Vision. Mm-hmm. And World Vision was going to re-release all these shows into. See, we were at that point primarily a theatrical company. The other things were sort of sidelined. We were making lots of money and making lots of shows. And video was just starting then, and we didn't understand it at all. We barely understood television. At that point, we'd only been in television 4 or 5 years. So World Vision and Taft Broadcasting sort of bought our library out from under $7-8 million, something like that. I'm sure everyone today would tell me that it was 10 or 15 or 20% of what it should have been sold for. But anyway, we did it and thought it was fine because we weren't intending to go into video or anything like that anyway. And so World Vision gets bought by Viacom.
Yeah.
And Viacom gets bought by Spelling, and Spelling gets bought by Paramount. So in about a 5 straight year period, the ownership of my shows went through 5 owners, right, to the point of where no one even knew that the shows existed anymore. And what happened was Jim Conway, my longtime buddy and now a director out in Hollywood, he ended up under contract at Paramount to do some of the Star Trek episodes. He directed them. And he buttonholed someone from Paramount one day and said, "Hey, you know, I directed this show, The Boogans, and we get just tons and tons of calls and letters and everything every year. Where's Boogans?" And Paramount didn't even know they owned it. And Jim sort of made it a quest. And now his wife, to this day, her name was Rebecca Balding, is in that movie. And so he made it a quest to help Paramount find the show in their library and get it released. And so it was released, I'd say, about 5-6 years ago on DVD for the first time ever.
Right. I actually wanted to ask you something because I had heard that Stephen King was a really big fan of the movie and actually contributed like a quote to one of the boxes.
Yeah.
I didn't know if that was true or not.
Stephen and I became friends, and we never actually worked together, but we were scheduled to work together on a show, and he apparently asked for me because of the Boogans. Mm-hmm. And so I went to New York and met with him, and we were scheduled to work together on a show, but then I ended up under contract, I believe, to Universal, and I couldn't work with Stephen. But in the meantime, he had let me know that he just loved the Boogans and loved the filmmaking and loved the concept, and was disappointed that we could never work together.
Yeah. Have you heard anything about an official DVD release of the movie?
On the Boogans?
Yeah.
Well, it was released about 5 years ago on DVD.
Yeah, I've heard something about that, but
yeah, it's out there. I see them on Amazon and on eBay all the time. I don't think it's in current release, but there's copies out there.
Also, about the title of the film,
Yeah.
isn't that a reference to an actual event where miners spend too much time underground?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
So, I guess it would be around 1983, 84. Silent Night, Deadly Night came out, and just curious, how did you first hear about the project?
Okay. Silent Night, Deadly Night, another one of those that became a cult classic for me. And, you know, I've now done enough shows that I know you just never know what's going to become a cult classic and what's not. Grizzly Adams, by the way, was not by far my biggest grossing show, but it's the one that I am still to this day most known for. So, you know, grosses and financial success don't necessarily equate to cult classics.
Mm-hmm.
But what happened was one of the guys that I had worked with a lot over the years, Jeff Sagansky, I had worked with him at NBC under Paul Klein, and Jeff became president of TriStar. And Jeff had been trying at that time to get me away from NBC and to do some work with him. And he called me one day and said, "Look, I've got a young producer in my office, outer office. He's not privy to this conversation. He's got a book that he owns the rights to called Sleigh Ride, and he wants to make it into a movie. There's no way that TriStar is going to greenlight that movie to a young first-time producer. Just no way. But I have a thought. If you will direct it, we'll greenlight the show into production, and you direct the show. It takes place, you live in Park City. It's winter right now. Park City, Utah, ski resort where I lived for 23 years. You can shoot it near your home. It all takes place in the snow. What he didn't tell me is it all took place at night in the snow, which, you know, in filmmaking, that is just the toughest stuff to do. But anyway, he said, I really, really would like for you to do me this favor, and I was just off my contract with NBC. And I said, okay, I'll direct this show. Send me the script. And he sent me a first draft of the script, and it needed a number of changes, a number of sort of beefing up kind of things, which we did right there in the field. Ira Barmack was the young producer. I don't know that he ever did anything else after that, and he was not very knowledgeable or experienced. And as a result, I mean, he's a nice man. He didn't interfere, and I pretty much made the show the way I wanted to make it.
Yeah.
But I had an unbelievable team around me on that show, which is what I think made it the cult classic that it is. But to answer your question, Jeff Sagansky at TriStar wanted me to direct something, and so that's the first one that we did together. And Jeff and I went on to do a number of shows together. He became president of CBS. I went under contract to CBS when he was there. Then he went to Sony while I was under contract to CBS. And he became chairman of Sony, and then he became president of the PAX Television Network, and he put me under a 7-year contract with PAX while he was there. And I'm just off of that contract. So Jeff and I had a long career together.
Yeah.
Now, were you familiar with, there were a couple other holiday horror movies, I guess you could say, like Black Christmas and Christmas Evil. Were you familiar at all with them before starting on Silent Night, Deadly Night?
Not at all. And again, you can see from my credits that I didn't have a whole heck of a lot of experience at making horror films. And I attribute the success of that show really to 3 other people. Mike Spence, the second unit director, Henning Schillerup, the director of photography, and Rick Josephson, who was head of special effects. We all sat together, went through the script, realized that it needed some beefing up, had sort of some unique locations that we were able to use. And because Jeff had personally, who was the president of the studio, had personally asked me to direct it, I had sort of a lot of juice on the show. And I'll give you an example, if I may, of one thing that came out of this collaboration with those three guys. We're on set one night in a log cabin, and Henning, the director of photography, had the gaffer set up that's a lighting technician, set up just a work light, just a single work light. It was low. It was about 3 foot in the air, and it was very bright, but it was to light the whole cabin so that they could wire it and hang their lighting plates and all that, which was going to take 2-3 hours. Well, while they were doing that, I was doing some rehearsing with the actors, and I noticed that this work light threw some awesomely scary shadows on the wall of this cabin. Mm-hmm. And it gave me an idea. And so I said, Henning, come over here, look at this. And I held my hand out, and I said, look at how frightening this all is on the wall. And the set people had hung a set of antlers to the cabin. In fact, maybe it was just there as part of the cabin that we had rented, for all I know. And those antlers were cast onto the wall. And Rick Josephson said, Chuck, look at this. And he took his hands and he lifted them up in front of the antlers.
Right.
And he said, if you lift the actress up, have a stuntman dressed as Santa lift the actress up, it would look like the antlers were going through her, when actually she'd be actually in front of the antlers. I mean, and we shot. If you've seen the movie, we shot most of that scene in shadow against the wall, and then Rick said, "I'll put you together a torso of the actress. I'll make a cast of the actress, put together a plan." And at this time, not a lot of this stuff had been done, a prosthetic torso. And then we'll go in tight, and you photograph the actress's face struggling and the Santa lifting her, and we'll cut in on this torso, which we'll do later. And Mike Spence said, "I'll come back later, Chuck, and get all those pickups." Mike Spence, my second unit director. So what we did was we filmed that scene that night of the actress being hung on the antlers because of that work light and seeing how scary the shadows were on the wall, and that scene was not in the script at all.
Yeah. So it was really a collaborative effort between all of you.
It really was. Mike Spence was brilliant in his second unit direction and picked up some great footage that I would leave behind for him to make work. And one thing you have to understand, particularly about horror movies, they are not scary to shoot at all. Yeah. Because they have to be shot in so many little pieces. And, the axe flies by the face of the actress. Well, the way that's done is the wide shot is a rubber axe being thrown by stuntman double. And then the close-up is literally shot, the camera is right in front of the actress's face. And then right behind the actress's face, 2 inches out of frame, is a stuntman with an axe, which he then hits the wall right next to the actress, so the axe only traveled 2-3 inches. Mm-hmm. So none of this stuff is scary when you shoot it at all. In fact, it's hard to motivate the actors and the actresses to fear and so forth, because they're cold. It's at night. They lack sleep because we went 36 straight nights filming, and we would film standardly a 12-hour day. Sometimes we'd go as much as 18 hours and then do an 8-hour turnaround.
Yeah.
And so, people are tired, and it's hard to get that fear motivated into them. Now, when Mike Spence also edited the show as well, so when we got done with the show, he went into an editing room and he said, let me assemble it because I've got all this second unit footage and you got all the first unit stuff, and you don't know what I did on second unit because you were always in bed when I was filming. So let me do an assembly and then I'll show it to you. Mm-hmm. So he gave me a call and said, okay, I can show it to you. Well, I was on another show at that time, and I said, can we look at it tonight? And so here we are after hours in this dark editing room, and he shows me the first cut on the show, and it scared the living hell out of me.
Yeah.
I mean, and I said, man, this did not have this feel on the set at all. Mm-hmm. And I came to understand, particularly with horror movies, that's the case.
Yeah. I was curious about the cast, including people like Linnea Quigley, whose death scene you mentioned in the film, and Lillian Chauvin, and people like that. Who cast them? Did you have any input into the casting process?
Oh, yeah, I did. First of all, and let me go down through that and tell you, Lillian Chavez, I'm an old John Wayne fan, and Lillian Chavez was in a John Wayne picture, North to Alaska. Mm-hmm. She was a young ingenue at that time. I wasn't even in the film business when that was made. But as a result, I'd always wanted to work with Lillian. And she came up as one of the actresses that wanted to read for the role of the Mother Superior. And I was quite excited and said, absolutely, let's go with her. Lillian, in my opinion, put in the performance of her career. She is a very kind, sweet person. But you would never know that from seeing Silent Night, Deadly Night, because, she's Wicked Witch of the West in there and pulls it off on multiple levels perfectly. There's no sneering or anything like that. It's all from inner strength inside her, which is the best acting. So Lillian not only had an outstanding performance, but for a number of years after that, we were all accused of having something against the Catholic Church because she was a Mother Superior, and that performance of hers, which came from her, it was just something that I don't think any of us envisioned, that she would be that powerful. And, it had nothing to do with the Catholic Church. This show, that part of the show took place at an orphanage. The backstory has to do with a young boy being mistreated in an orphanage, and it caused him problems when he became an adult with facing and enduring Christmas, and caused him to, as an adult, to sort of go nuts and become that version of a slasher. Mm-hmm. So, that's all that it had to do with it. And at that time, the Catholic Church ran a number of the orphanages, and it was a natural for it to take place there. It meant nothing by it at all. I happen to be an evangelical Christian, and I have nothing against Catholics at all.
Right.
Let me tell you a couple of the other casting stories, if I may.
Sure.
Charlie Deercup, fun guy. I'd worked with him a number of times, mostly on Westerns. And Charlie had asked me, can I get some more work with you? So I cast him as the killer Santa. Mm-hmm. And having worked with Charlie, I knew, a lot about him. He'd been in a lot of gangster shows and things like that. And I thought this would be just really straightforward for him. So I walk on set that night. He's dressed in Santa. And one of the very first scenes that we shoot is him stopping this family along the highway. And the first scene out of him, it doesn't sound like Charlie Deercup. And I'm going, what the heck? What am I hearing? What's going on? I cut. I walked over to Charlie, and I said, Charlie, what was it I just heard? And he said, oh, Chuck, that was me with an Irish accent. I said, what? He said, well, yeah, don't you know, Santa Claus is Irish. And I said, well, Charlie, I don't know that, number one. And number two, he's not Irish in this show. So we had to rehearse that a little bit and do a few retakes, and finally Charlie got Santa Claus at least the way I felt that Santa Claus should be, and I was directing, so I got to say. Yeah. But Charlie saw himself as Irish in that show and really threw us. Another person in the show, Tara Buckman. Tara Buckman was the mother. I thought she did just a wonderful job of it. A few years before, Burt Reynolds and I had been partners in a production company together, and were friends for a number of years. And Tara was in a show he had done called Cannonball Run. I had met her on set and very much liked her acting. She didn't have a very big role in that, and so I did a show called Snowballing and cast her in that, and then cast her as the mother in Silent Night, Deadly Night, and I thought she did just a terrific job under a very tough, cold condition. It was like 20 degrees below zero in those scenes we shot with her.
Wow.
Yeah. But the funniest story that I have to tell is on Linnea Quigley.
Yeah.
The studio wanted Linnea in the show because they said you can't do a horror picture without Linnea Quigley. And I said, fine. I had never worked with her. And she showed up on set. The first night I worked with her was on this scene that I told you about earlier where she gets hung on the antlers. We worked backwards and, to some other scenes. But that's the first scene that we started with working with her. And quite a nice, good-looking young lady. And so we get everything worked out, and Don Shanks was the Santa stuntman, and Don Shanks was the Indian in Grizzly Adams, and Don and I worked together for a number of years, and Don still works quite successfully in the film business. But anyway, Don lifts up Linnea beside the antlers, and I've got the camera very low, and all we're doing this in like 100 pieces, and the camera's very low, and all we're doing is getting over the shoulder, and that's supposed to be our young 18-year-old boy who's gone crazy doing this now, and a very muscular guy, and cast in that role. His name was Robert Wilson. But anyway, Don lifts her, and he lifts her up, and the camera sees up her skirt because Don had accidentally lifted, got bunches of her skirt. And Linnea has no underwear on.
Right.
And I went, what in the heck? Cut. And I get the wardrobe gal. I mean, this is like we're hearing in the news here this last week. Actresses are flashing people, and at this time you didn't do that. I mean, this show had not that kind of rating.
Yeah.
And anyway, I get the wardrobe gal over, and I said, what the heck is going on here? Linnea doesn't have any underwear. And my wardrobe gal, who had worked with me on a number of shows, she said, sir, I mean, no one sirs me, and I knew I'm in trouble, right? She goes, sir, she doesn't own any underwear. She I'm going, oh, man, how do I get this shot? So I went over and I asked for one of the set radios which communicated to the office. This is before cell phones. And my wife, Julie Magnuson, worked in the production office to this day, still does. And I said, could I speak to my wife, Julie? And I said, Julie, would you mind getting in your car and going and getting 4 different pairs of your underwear and bringing them to set? And would you mind doing that? And she said, yes, I would. She'd mind doing it. She didn't want to do it. And I'm going, no, you don't understand. I'm in trouble out here, and the clock is ticking. Please do this for me. So she did. She ran 4 different types of her underwear out to set, and I said to the wardrobe, choose one, get this gal dressed. I got to get this scene shot. So we get the scene done and get the night done, and 4 or 5 days later, after we're done with Linnea and she's on a plane back home, the wardrobe came to me and said, we have cleaned your wife's underwear, and what do you want us to do? And so I called her on the radio, and I said, what do you want me to send these back to? What do you want to do? And she said, burn them. So that's my Linnea Quigley story, and pretty much standard, if you know Linnea at all.
Yeah.
So it was a tiring shoot, all at night, all in the cold, long extended. We would shoot from sunset to sunrise, get it as much dark as we could, and then we'd do a sunset shot and a sunrise shot as well. Mm-hmm. And so it was a fun show, but very, very exhausting, and it never failed. I'd get to bed, and I wouldn't be in bed over 2 hours. We'd usually get to bed 7:38 in the morning, and I wouldn't be in bed over 2 hours, and my phone would ring, and it would be the studio wanting to know what the heck had happened the night before, how'd it go, am I happy, am I pleased, blah, blah, blah. And they never quite understood that we shot nights and slept days. Through the whole show, they never quite got it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I know that Anchor Bay released a DVD a couple years ago that added some footage back in. Mm-hmm. I'm just curious, was that footage actually used in the brief theatrical run the movie had?
No, it wasn't. It was addition. It's like every show that's ever shot, we overshot and had some additional scenes and some additional things that were lifted at the time we felt to make the show move quicker and things of that nature. But they were scenes that we had shot originally, just never made it into the show until the DVD.
So another big part of the movie is after it was released theatrically, there was a huge controversy, and parents groups and a bunch of different people accused the filmmakers of being irresponsible towards Santa Claus, which I was kind of wondering what your opinion was on that, because it's not actually Santa Claus.
No, it's not.
In the film.
Well, first of all, the whole controversy took not only all of us, but TriStar by total surprise. You got to remember, Friday the 13th, Freddy, on and on and on had already been out by then. They're in their early versions, these things went on to be many, many more versions, including Silent Night, Deadly Night. But so there have been a number of these out. Slasher picture was pretty standard at that point. Mm-hmm. And since it wasn't actually about Santa Claus, what it was a guy using a Santa Claus suit was holding up 7-Elevens or those kinds of stores, and it was a good guise for him, because there were lots of Santas on every corner, and he'd get away, and the cops were looking and grabbing hold of all these Santas, and none of them were the right one. Yeah. So it was a good disguise for him. And what happened was his car broke down, and he got stranded and had to flag down a car, and ended up killing the whole family that was in the car except for this one little boy who had run into the bushes and seen his whole family killed. And this had pretty well goofed his head up, as anyone could imagine. He's seeing, from his perspective, 4-year-old, he thinks he's seeing Santa kill his family.
Yeah.
It was just a robber in a Santa costume. So he grows up with this fear of Christmas and this fear of Santa Claus. He gets the orphanage gets him a job at a hardware store, and the regular Santa who was at the hardware store ended up breaking his arm or got sick or something, and the owner of the store, nice man, said, "You've got to step in and do this for me." And he goes, "No, I can't. I wouldn't. It's just not a thing I could do." And he said, "You've just got to do this for me, or I'm going to have to get someone else." He forces him to become Santa in the store. And the last thing he says to him is, he says, "Now, do you know how to be Santa?" And this 18-year-old boy who'd had this whole warped childhood said, "Yeah, I know how to be Santa." Well, he knew how to be Santa the way Charlie Deercup knew how to be Santa.
Yeah.
Not really Santa. And so putting on the Santa suit drove him off the deep end, and he proceeded to become the classic slasher. And that's what the story's about. So, I mean, and no different than any of those other slasher movies of that period of time, and there were a lot of them out. And so when it hit the theater, it did huge first week business at that time, and immediately started getting protested. Well, normally a studio loves that, let's fan the protesters up to a frenzy or something. But TriStar at that time was doing something in the financial business, a secondary offering or some kind of thing like that, and they all panicked. Their finance people in New York panicked and said, we're coming out with this new offering, and you guys got families protesting in front of the theater.
Mm-hmm.
And so they pulled it after about 10 days and gave the show to Ira Barmack, the producer. I mean, just if I'd have known they were going to do it, and if I hadn't been busy on other shows at the time, I'd have probably said, "Hey, give the show to me, guys."
Yeah.
But they gave it to Ira. And I'm not sure what happened to it after that until I got a call one time. I'm trying to remember. It was a very big video company. They're not in business. Live Video called me and said, "We have acquired Silent Night, Deadly Night, and before we release it, we want to do a sequel direct to video, and would you direct it?"
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "No, I'm not interested in going back there and doing that." I felt the work that we had all done was brilliant, and all they really wanted to do was, and they ended up using half the footage from the first show, and so the second one was basically junk in my humble opinion, and I didn't have anything to do with it. And that was the next time that I heard about Silent Night, Deadly Night again.
Right. I was just curious, how much of the film's cult success do you think is directly related to TriStar's decision to pull it from the theaters at the time?
I don't think any. I think that its cult success is based upon the great director of photography, second unit director, special effects director, and the script.
Yeah.
I really do. I think that it tells a story in a very impactful way. We only spent $750,000 on it. Even at that time, that was not a lot of money for a feature film. I mean, the average feature film was probably costing $1.5 to $2 million at the time.
Mm.
So it was a low budget B horror film. And I don't think that it has anything to do with TriStar pulling it. I think TriStar pulling it buried it, and it was those few people that were able to see it in its first 10 days that caused its resurrection.
Okay. Yeah. I know we was talking about the Anchor Bay DVD earlier. How close did you work with them on the actual remastering of the DVD and things like that?
I was not involved in any way with it at all, and there is an interview on the DVD from me, which I never gave them approval of. And what that was, it was an interview for Fangoria magazine. Fangoria had done an article on me in 94 in that area, 93 in that area, the cover and a big inside story about me. Mm-hmm. And in the process, they had recorded the interview. The writer had recorded the interview. And this writer sold that interview to be in the DVD. It wasn't actually made for the DVD.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So I didn't have any knowledge that any of that was going on.
Okay, so moving away from Silent Night, Deadly Night into some of your other work, I've noticed another trend about a lot of the stuff that you've either produced or written is it tends to lean towards either unexplained phenomenon or conspiracy theories, and I was just wondering how you got involved in those topics and what you may have learned from researching them.
Well, I did a short UFO factor fiction in 1972 to put in the theaters with our long show. I did Bigfoot. Anyway, those, and of course, then I did the full feature, Chariots of the Gods, based on the Von Daniken book. I just became very intrigued with that kind of stuff. I've written a number of books on world mysteries and on UFOs and things of that nature. Hangar 18, wrote a book called Hangar 18, which is based on Roswell. And I have, over the years, personally followed and been interested in mystery and phenomena and things like that. Mm-hmm. From time to time, they let me make it into a movie. Most of the time, I got to make movies on other things. But I personally love those things. I was invited about 3 weeks ago to a seminar that was held in Las Vegas on UFO crashes and UFO crash phenomena. Mm-hmm. And Linda Moulton Howe was one of the speakers there. I went because a number of the writers that I have under contract were speaking there, and I was invited to go. So me and most of my staff went. And Linda Moulton Howe gave I don't know if you know who she is, but she's quite a famous writer, and she's was on Coast to Coast radio program for a number of years and very well known in the phenomena business. She gave a presentation on military recordings of military people, radio recordings, controller recordings, and telephone recordings of military people spotting UFOs, and it was spellbinding. It was quite a presentation, and because of that, I decided when we left Las Vegas that I was going to go visit Area 51 because a lot of the people who were in her presentation had been at Area 51, were recordings from Area 51, things like that. Mm-hmm. And my story editor, Joe Meyer, said, well, I got better things to do than spend the week in a federal jail, so I'll pass on that. But several other of my staff and I decided to make the drive to Rachel to see if we could find Area 51. And we got to town, and this elderly, Rachel is, if you don't know, is this little tiny town, about 34 people in it. It has one little tiny gas station and one little hotel called the Alien, and that's it. We drive into town in front of the Alien, and this elderly lady comes up to me with this log, and she writes down my license plate and asks me to sign it. Well, this is not, I mean, this is just a little American town, right? That's not normal for a little American town. And I wanted to get my picture taken. I have always wanted to get my picture taken with this sign that says they'll use deadly force if you go beyond this point. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the signs.
Yeah, I actually have seen that.
So we walked into the city offices, and there was another elderly gal in there, and I explained to her, we'd like to go to where this sign is. And she scratched her head, and she said, I'm not familiar with this sign. I said, well, it's quite famous.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, I think it's back 40 or 50 miles. And I kept saying, no, I know it's around Rachel. And she got a little insistent that it was back 40 or 50 miles. And Terry Schumacher, who was with me, said, come on, Chuck, we'll go back 40, 50 miles. As we're walking out the door, on her wall are a bunch of pictures of hunters with antlers and things, probably her family. One of those pictures in the middle of this montage is someone standing at that sign. I said, this is the sign. This is the one. And she came over and said, boy, I'm not familiar with that photo on the wall. And she says, I still think it's back 40 or 50 miles. So we load up in the car, and everybody's prepared to go back 40, 50 miles. I went, no. It's here. I had a film crew film it a dozen years before for a television series called UFO Diaries, and I knew it was in Rachel. So I was driving, and the rest of everybody else just had to go along with it, and we drove out back of Rachel, and sure enough, here's this gorgeous, big, wide, well-kept road hitting nowhere towards Area 51, the direction we knew. And I went down at about 10 miles. Everybody's getting antsy and saying, this is going nowhere. And we come around a curve, and here are twin gates with twin pill boxes with rifle slots and everything else. And these pill boxes are reflective glass, so you can't see if anybody's in them or anything like that. And at this gate is this big, huge double row of these signs. And the biggest one of the signs is this big red sign. It is a federal offense to photograph this. So I jump out of the car, and I say to Terry Schumacher, come get my picture with all these signs. And I go and I stand over next to the signs, and now the guards are closing on us. And I said, real quick, Terry, get a picture of me. And he did. And it's my prized possession with 6 of these big, huge signs telling me they'll shoot me and everything else.
Yeah.
And Terry says, quick, get my picture. And in the background of Terry's picture is a guard closing on us. And after I got his picture, Terry grabbed the camera. He says, they're going to take the camera away from me. So he shoves it in his pocket, and we start heading back to the car. And Terry says to the guard, good morning. Real big smile on his face. And the guard just looks at us in disgust. And the whole time in the car, we've had, I didn't even know this, a video camera going of the whole thing. And so we beat it out of there, and they let us go. Didn't bother us. And so they played back this video for me. And it's just the funniest, exciting piece of video of us coming on Area 51, because if you know the backstory, they claim this area doesn't exist.
Uh-huh.
And so, it was a lot of fun seeing it. Anyway, my wife said to me that I needed to start acting my age, and I told her, I think I am acting my age. This is who I am. This is what I've done all my life.
Yep.
So I love phenomena. I did a very successful book for Dell called Mysteries of the Ancient World, which detailed all the ancient mysteries that no one's ever solved. And I love that stuff, but I don't always get to do it on film.
Yeah. So I was hoping if you could tell us a little bit about your production company. And I know you have an upcoming project called Heroes Among Us, Miracles Around Us.
Yeah, that's just now out. What I do is what you'd call a docudrama. It's got dramatic scenes in it, but it's all true. And what I do is explore, are we still today having miracles happen, and do we still today have heroes among us? And it's a series of true events, of things that happen to people that could be well documented, and many of the people in it are famous. I mean, you've seen them in news and things like that, telling their stories. And it's quite a moving show, which sort of proves to people that there are still today, this minute, heroes among us. It wasn't back in the age of armor. Mm-hmm. And there are still miracles occurring around us right now today. And that's my latest show. It's just in release now. And as I told you earlier, I'm working on two new dramatic shows, one called Friends for Life and the other called Will to Survive. And Will to Survive will bring Grizzly Adams back for the first time in 34 years.
Right. Cool. Do you ever see yourself possibly doing another horror film? I got to tell you something. Horror films are for the young. I'm talking about to make these things is for the young. And I'll tell you why. They're hugely demanding. And just take everything out of you. If you were to say to me, go back and shoot that show right now today, I'm 63 years old, and I just don't think I could take it.
Yeah.
So I guess what I would say, let's say a studio or someone called me and said, would you make this show? I'd say, I'll help you find a young 30-year-old filmmaker to do it. But horror filmmaking is for the young, because it requires all of the imagination that you have. Nothing ever works right, and you're always rethinking everything and reinventing on the spot. And that gets duller as you get older. Mm-hmm. And so I would say that I'm no longer capable of the work that I did back then.
Okay.
Creatively.
There's another thing, that a rumor on the internet, and I was just going to ask if you'd been contacted at all about a possible remake of Silent Night, Deadly Night.
Oh, no, I haven't heard a word about that.
It seems like they're remaking all the movies from the 80s right now.
Yeah,
so.
Everything on Earth is being remade. Yeah. No, I've not heard